The following segment comes from a full SEC preview episode from Running Out the Clock. If you like what you hear in this segment, then be sure and subscribe to the channel so that you can catch all of our SEC previews, including whether or not we think the teams discussed in these previews will do better, worse, or the same this season. Now we're going to move on to the Georgia Bulldogs, the SEC champions from last season, runner-ups in the national race. An unexpected performance last year out of the Georgia Bulldogs. They were predicted to be good. A lot of people were thinking they'd, be good, probably win the East, all that sort of thing. Not a lot of people were expecting them to be a number one team in the country, battling for a national title, making it to the playoff, all of that, especially after Jacob Eason, the starter for the season, goes down very early on and is out. Jake Fromm, star of QB1 on Netflix, shows up to lead them for the rest of the year, does a pretty solid job. Of course, he had two of the most dynamic running backs in college football on his side, which helps, and some phenomenal defenders to go along with that. Things a little bit different this year. I mean, Eason has officially gone back home to Washington. He's from Lake Stevens, Washington, which, if I remember correctly, is just like a half hour away from where my wife grew up, something like that. But anyway, home of Chris Pratt.
Congrats on being married, bro.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Also, congrats to Chris Pratt.
Yeah, more importantly than anything else, just congrats to Chris Pratt. That man's doing great in life, and I'm really happy for him. So it stands to reason at this point that, well, Jake Fromm is the guy. He is the man leading into this time, or is he? Because there is a five-star dual threat recruit coming in. That was a little bit bigger recruit coming out of high school than Fromm was, so people are wondering about that. But what do we think about, first and foremost, the Georgia quarterbacking situation now that they've got another guy who is coming into the season as the established starter? We know that could change in a heartbeat. But what do we think about Jake Fromm as a signal caller? I don't know if you guys have strong opinions about Fromm or not, but I want to hear them. Chandler, what do you think?
Well, I think that Jake Fromm, State Farm, is a good quarterback. I hate to call quarterbacks this, but really all he had to do last year was come in and just manage the game, get the ball to Chubb and Michelle, and kind of let them do their thing. And then when you need to make a play. And he did. He did a great job of that. And so that's why I hate calling somebody a game manager, because it implies that they're somehow not a good quarterback in and of themselves. And he really is. I mean, he fit the offense well. I mean, just everything that you asked him to do was just so perfect for their offense. And hey, talk about baptism by fire. His first game as a starter is at Notre Dame.
Right.
Notre Dame's still not a great team, but that's still not a game that you want to be like, hey, congratulations, rookie. Here's your first start. Go. And he was able to rely on the defense and the running game, and they got it done. And I think the only question that I really have there is, does Justin Fields, maybe as a quarterback himself, does he give them more of that big play potential from the quarterback himself, instead of, hey, you just kind of come in and manage the game and just don't make mistakes and let the rest of your team win? That's the only real question I have about it. And without knowing more, I don't know a ton about what Georgia has behind Michelle and Chubb. So that's what I'm looking for to see is, does Justin Fields kind of present enough of that big play kind of game-breaking opportunity in and of himself versus Fromm's ability to just kind of do the right thing and make the right play. Kind of what do they end up needing on offense? That's what I want to know.
Sure. I mean, in Fromm, you've got, a prototypical, kind of a prototypical Georgia quarterback that we've had in recent memory. I think about Aaron Murray a lot as well when I think about Jake Fromm, and that, about 6'2", 215, 220 pounds or something like that. A pretty much a pocket passer, and a pretty, when he's comfortable, I mean, he's going to make the right throws. He did throw as a true freshman for 2,600 yards, 62% completion percentage. 24 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Not bad numbers at all for a freshman. But again, he was in the situation in which he didn't have to force anything. Exactly what you're saying, Chandler. He didn't really have to, step up and do anything out of the ordinary. And maybe that is what Fields can do. He could be more of a playmaker type of player, and maybe that's what they want to switch to. But as far as what they do have returning, in particular, they come back with some pretty experienced wide receivers, I believe. One of the more experienced cores as a whole in the conference. They lost Javon Wims, I believe, graduated or went pro. But beyond that, they bring back most of the guys they had. Now, granted, it was a wide receiver core that didn't necessarily spread the ball out very deep. They really have 3 players in particular that stand out as having a handful of catches, double-digit catches. Beyond that, Michelle, Chubb are gone. Keith, they bring back a player, DeAndre Swift, who did run for 600 yards last season.
And what a great running back name, right?
Right, exactly. I mean, you want to, what type of running back is he? Oh, he's a power back.
Pretty much hit the lottery with that one.
Anyway, but they bring back DeAndre Swift, 600 yards as a freshman, got several years left with this guy. What is it going to take, though, for that offense that, as of right now, they've got like I mentioned, several experienced receivers coming back, if not generally tested. And they've got what seems to be a promising running back. But what's it going to take to replace what Michelle and Chubb were able to do?
Well, getting 600 yards in the same backfield as a healthy Nick Chubb and Sony Michel is pretty impressive, to be perfectly honest. So I think they're in capable hands with who they have back there. I don't think they lost anything on the offensive line, so they look to be good there. They've stayed remarkably consistent on offense as far as their turnover, outside of obviously, all-star running backs like Chubb and Michelle. But I think he just does what he did last year. He's going to get a lot more carries, and so stands to reason that he should pick up right where he left off.
Do you think that they have enough tools there to have a productive offense, all things considered?
Overall, yeah. I think so. I think that they're going to have to find some more depth at the wide receiver position to be able to make a lot of noise there. And of course, Jake Fromm's going to have to continue developing. I'm always really leery of true freshman quarterbacks coming in and being counted on to be playmakers and to completely lead an offense. If Fromm gets hurt or completely implodes, then you have no choice there. But to say that he beats out Fromm in a quarterback battle and then starts the rest of the way going forward, I would be a lot less confident in that offense if they decide to go that way, personally.
I mean, it would be a very strange, thank you to Jake Fromm for surviving last season. Yeah. Go ahead and Benjamin completely change everything up. This might be a situation where, having just lost their 2 most productive playmakers on the offensive side of things, and that they need to just establish, stability first and foremost, in putting as much confidence as they can in Fromm to make the plays in his offensive line, to hold and to give him enough time to be productive. That's what it stands to reason. Maybe that be what their focus is first and foremost.
And I think you have to remember the new redshirt rule that plays into this, because you can play Justin Fields as much as you want in 4 games this year, and whether that's whether that's making sure, kind of like they did, if you remember several years ago when DJ Shockley took over for David Green, they kind of always made sure that Shockley got one or two drives with the ones when the game was still on the line, and that served him well. He came in, he was ready to play, and so you can kind of come in and you can really groom Fields to play this year. You can give him meaningful snaps and not really have to worry about his future eligibility. And then I think just with him, it's kind of a Tim Tebow, Chris Leak situation because Fields, I think Fields is so he's going to see the field. He has to see the field because he's just that good, I think. And you can kind of put him in where some goal line runs, some design plays every so often, some opportunities to kind of really get him in the rhythm of a game without kind of saying to Fromm, hey, you're not our guy. You're not the guy that we think. We believe in you, but here's some different things he can do, and we're going to make that happen. So I think they're gonna. Fromm's their guy. I don't think there's any real question there, but I think they're going to use Fields in a way that really kind of gets you excited about the future if you're into Georgia doing well.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good comparison with the Chris Leak and Tim Tebow situation in Florida. A lot of fans saw Tim Tebow as the quarterback of the future. Obviously, that was Chris Leak's senior year. It's a little bit of a different situation out of Athens, but I think that you can kind of bring him along slowly, get him some reps, put him into specific packages. It's worked well for teams in the past, kind of with that sort of dichotomy, I guess. Fields is being compared to Clemson's Deshaun Watson. That's pretty high praise. So if you got a guy that reminds you a lot of a player like that, then I wouldn't blame you for trying to get him early reps.
Yeah, it makes sense with the whole red shirt rule to go ahead and try it out, especially considering that they have the ability. I had Georgia's schedule pulled up in front of me a second ago, and I seem to have misplaced it. I was going to see exactly who all they open up with to determine whether or not.
Their first four games are Austin Peay, at South Carolina, Middle Tennessee State, and at Missouri.
Yeah, so you've got Austin Peay, Middle Tennessee State in particular, where you can safely assume that they do what they're supposed to do. They've got time to put him in there and let him run things for a little bit and see exactly what the offense could, stack up like for him. So why not? Why not give him a shot? I don't think he's going to be able to do enough. I think Kirby Smart, I don't think strikes me as too much of a risk taker in trying to go ahead and shake things up too much like that. Who knows? He could be wrong. And you never know what might happen. It could be that Fromm comes out and just blows it for a couple of games and Fields looks just that much more composed. Who knows? We'll find out.
And injuries are always a possibility too.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's why we're having this conversation right now is because of an injury last year.
Sure. That's not why I brought it up as if he could beat him out in the race, which is what some people are trying to make a storyline. So yeah, injuries are one thing. I was specifically speaking right then about just production wise getting better. So also as a quick side note, that's not related to anything. If you go to Atlanta Falcons rookie wide receiver Calvin Ridley's Wikipedia page right now, it says that he's a 7'1", 190-pound guy who was picked number 1 overall and died in 1910.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I don't know what I don't know if you have a beef with that or not, but that seems pretty accurate to me.
You asked me to describe Calvin Ridley. That's exactly how I'm describing him.
No, I think that's accurate.
Years
I don't
from
think
now,
of anything else. Yeah.
When my children ask, that's what I'm going to bring up.
That's as accurate as a Jake Fromm touchdown pass.
Yep. Ho. All right. Keith, going to go back to you real quick because I know you've got some opinions here on this issue, but one of the biggest storylines leading into Georgia's season happens on the defensive side of things. In particular, that's where they probably see the most overall loss. Obviously, Chubb and Michelle leaving are huge losses. But on the defense side of things, they see a lot more loss across other, multiple positions. In particular, they do lose one of the greatest linebackers that they've had, but they also lose all of their starting linebackers. They're bringing in a group that saw a lot of playing time last season. It's not inexperienced as far as backups go, but they are not starters from last year. So what's it going to take here? What's your assessment, Keith, of the Georgia defense right now? What's it going to take for them to, keep at least some of the firepower that made them a good team last season?
So Kirby Smart is a smart defensive guy. I mean, it's in his name, for crying out loud.
I know. I was trying so hard to not say Kirby Smart is too smart to take a gamble on the quarterback thing. I was trying so hard, but that's all I wanted to say.
Well, I got you covered, buddy.
Thank you.
So, in saying that, he knew that there was going to be a lot of turnover on the defensive side of the ball, and it's just good practice to do this anyway, and that's to rotate your guys in and out a whole lot. A, it keeps them fresh, and B, it gets guys who might not normally get a bunch of reps, game time experience, so that when their time comes next year or the following year or whatever, they're ready, and you're not throwing out a bunch of brand new souls out there to be ripped apart by the high flying SEC East. But they lose 8 starters and 2 more depth guys on defense that played a lot last year, including their entire starting linebacking core. And as you mentioned, a guy who's like a generational player for them. And that's I don't care how much experience the guys coming in after that have. That's incredibly difficult to replace.
Right. I mean, you don't lose someone like Roquan Smith.
Yeah,
and just instantly turn around and go, okay, that's fine.
And just keep on plugging away.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's gonna be some growing pains. This Georgia squad reminds me honestly a lot of the 07 Florida team, in which they had a lot of talented guys coming in, high turnover on defense, still a lot of firepower on offense. And so they scored a whole bunch of points, but they also gave up a whole bunch of points. The games were a lot of fun to watch because there were touchdowns everywhere. But when you're a fan of a specific team, it's great to watch you score 42, 48 points a game, but it also gives you mild heart attacks every weekend watching teams stay close that probably shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the only reason why I have a question mark about Georgia going forward this year is that people seem to be really quick to say, well, they got a lot of young guys coming in, but they're all incredibly talented and they got some playing time last year, so it shouldn't be that big of an issue. I understand why they're saying it because the East is such a question mark this year, and it has been for the last really 4 or 5 years.
Sure.
But I wouldn't be, me personally, I would be a little bit skeptical of saying it's all going to be fine.
Yeah. I mean, there's enough there. There's enough loss on defense to, worry you a little bit. There's enough. And I think what a lot of Georgia, defenders are staking their claims in is that there's enough, good recruiting classes in the past few years and enough overall talent that has been brought in to hopefully plug a lot of those gaps. But they're untested. Mm-hmm. They're untested right now. Yes, you've had some guys that played a lot. And yes, you can rely on they do have returning stars, such as like DeAndre Baker, their cornerback, or safety J.R. Reed, who can lock down the secondary. But yeah, there's a lot out there. I guess for me, Chandler, when I look at the SEC East, the question that rings out here is, even if this is not as good a Georgia team as it was last year, Do you look at the SEC East and see anyone there that's going to take the top spot from them, like that could right now? Or and follow up to that, if this is a quote unquote down year for Kirby Smart in Georgia while they wait for like their big time recruits to develop a little bit more, then are they, if they go ahead and win the East again, are they ever going to lose any game ever again in the history of football?
The short answer is no. So as I was kind of looking at making picks and kind of predicting how the SEC was going to go this year, looking at Georgia's schedule, I really think they're going to be tested, and I think they're going to lose early to South Carolina. But I think that's going to be one of those things that ends up being a real benefit to them, because they're going to be playing a lot of young guys on defense, a lot of inexperienced new guys, all that kind of stuff. But they had a generationally great recruiting class last season. And as we all know, that Georgia does it completely clean and above the books, and they don't cheat at all. As just like Alabama, kids,
and everybody else.
Kids turn down thousands of dollars from other schools because they just they just love the prestige of playing for Georgia or Alabama, and that's definitely how it works. But no, they've got a ton of talent. They've got a ton of great players, and it's gonna, you don't want to, like, when you've got that many young guys and you've got that many incoming young defenders, you don't want to look and see guys like Jake Bentley and Devo Samuel that early in the season. But after that, they're really not tested again until, potentially when they go to LSU, but definitely when they play Florida in the world's largest non-alcoholic outdoor party thing that they call
cocktail bowl thingy.
Yeah. So I think they'll drop one early, but they're gonna learn from that, and they're gonna grow, and they're gonna continue to get better. And I really only see them losing one game, and that's because, like I said, they're not tested again until Florida, and then they got that big game with Auburn near the end of the year. But the talent always tends to rise to the top. And they're going to find the best players that fit their defense. They're going to find the best players that fit their offense. And if they may have to lean on their offense a little bit more early in the year than they would like to. And I think that you would want to typically see a Kirby Smart team do. But I just don't think that's going to matter that much, because outside of South Carolina, there's nobody early that they play that's really, I think, going to be able to challenge them both offensively and defensively. Missouri will challenge them offensively, but I think they'll be able to. Georgia will be able to score at will against Missouri as well. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about how they're looking.
You guys will have to excuse me. I'm a little dehydrated right now from all of Chandler's saltiness. Thanks again for listening to this specific individual team preview. If you want more content like this, be sure to subscribe to Running Out the Clock so you don't miss any more of our SEC previews leading up to this season. You can find the full episode that this comes from by searching for our 2018 SEC Preview full episodes. And you'll want to listen to that because we give a verdict at the end of whether or not we feel like the team mentioned will do better, worse, or stay the same. For Running Out the Clock, I'm your friend Joseph Craven. Thanks for listening.